And then at 21, it's not Shedeur Sanders. It's not a quarterback. Welcome into the Breer Report. It is draft day, April 24th, 2025, which means I've got all the answers for you here, or maybe not really, but we have a mock draft up on the website, which maybe gives you a little bit of an idea on how things are going to go tonight. But this has become one of the most unpredictable drafts I can remember. What it lacks in quality, I think it'll make up for in drama over the course of the night. We have gone over chapter and verse, the first four picks. I do think the chalk holds there that you are going to get with the first pick, Cam Ward to the Titans, with the second pick, Travis Hunter to the Browns, with the third pick, Abdul Carter to the Giants, and with the fourth pick, Will Campbell to the Patriots. And then the fun will begin. And I think the interesting thing about this year's class is you've got players in the first round who have ranges of 20 picks, where a guy could go 6th or 26th, the guy could go 10th or 30th. And so for a lot of teams, and I joked with somebody early, with a couple of coaches last night, this has sort of become the F it draft, where you look at it and you say, maybe we don't want to take this guy here. Maybe we'd be more comfortable taking this guy 5 or 10 picks later, but we like him, so F it, we'll take him here. I think that's going to create a lot of volatility over the course of the first round tonight. And so the way we're going to do this, our producer, Kent Brown, has done a fantastic job with the Breer Report all year. Took a look at my mock draft, combed through it, and found some things that he was interested by. So this is going to be Kent's own personal mailbag, so we can give you a little bit more juice on some of the things that I put there in the mock draft. And be sure not to just look at the order of the picks in the mock draft. There's stuff in the blurbs as well that'll give you a little bit more of this sort of juice that we're going to give you here, with a few of the picks that Kent found as more interesting. So with the fifth pick, I have Ashton Jeanty. Until about a week ago, I felt pretty good that this was going to be Mason Graham, because I looked at the new regime there. I saw James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, their Rams background. You look at what the Rams have done over the years, the success they had with Aaron Donald as the best player on their roster for a whole bunch of years. They won a championship with him. Even last year, James Gladstone was there when they drafted Braden Fisk. They traded up for him in the second round. And so Mason Graham made sense. My feeling on that's changed. I think this is going to be an offensive skill player. And I think in all likelihood it's Ashton Jeanty. And I think if somebody trades up into the top 10, it's going to be for Ashton Jeanty. Here's the logic, okay? Maybe you look at Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, and Armand Membu, and you think to yourself, they're good players, but are they ever going to be top 10, top 15 at their position? Maybe you look at Jalen Walker or Mykel Williams, and you say, okay, good players, but are they ever going to be top 15 pass rushers in the NFL? And then you look at Ashton Jeanty and you say, this guy could be one of the top 2 or 3 backs in all of football, and it could happen fast. And what could that mean for your young quarterback? If you are at Denver with Bo Nix and you're looking at going up, if you are a Chicago with Caleb Williams, what could it mean for your quarterback to have somebody to stabilize your offense, to get you in 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 2 more consistently? And I think that's what Jeanty can bring you. He can give you more favorable down and distance situations more consistently because of the kind of runner he is. He can eat up carries. And he can be the layup for your quarterback in the passing game. He can do what Zeke Elliott did for Dak Prescott when they were both rookies in Dallas. He can do for a quarterback what you saw Todd Gurley do for Jared Goff in Los Angeles early on in their time together. So I think Ashton Jeanty makes sense for the Jaguars at 5. If there is a curveball here, keep an eye on Teteroa McMillan. He's a name that I could see going as high as 5 to the Jaguars, maybe 11 to the Niners. He could slide all the way down to the 20s, where I think a team like the Packers could be interested in him. All right, the second pick that Kent pulled out was the New Orleans Saints taking Mykel Williams, 9th overall. If the Saints take a quarterback here, I think it would probably be Ole Miss's Jackson Dart. That's me putting pieces together, not reporting anything, but I think Dart would be the guy they would probably take. I wonder if some of the heat on Dart's name has put some more heat on them to take a quarterback at 9. Remember, Mickey Loomis still very close with Sean Payton. Sean Payton last year in this sort of circumstance where you looked at it and you said, we really like a quarterback, but we could get him later on. What do we do? And Payton just said, F it. We're going to take Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick. We don't care what anybody else thinks. Maybe that happens with Jackson Dart. But my feeling is they're going to go with a line of scrimmage player. The offensive tackles are gone here. So I go with a big, sturdy edge from Georgia, the kind of player that I think Brandon Staley is going to really like, and the kind of player that can be your long-term replacement for Cam Jordan. The third pick that Kent pulled out here was the Chicago Bears taking Tyler Warren. Now, part of this for me was a result of what was there on the board. I think they love the idea of adding an offensive tackle. I think if Kelvin Banks fell there, that would be good. I don't have him getting down that far. If Ashton Jeanty were to somehow slip through, could see Ashton Jeanty to the Bears, that would make a ton of sense. But I have them taking Tyler Warren because I think if you look at like Tyler Warren and his profile, he's a Swiss Army knife. So you're going to want to be creative in using him. There's been no one in the NFL over the last couple of years that's been more creative about using his personnel than Ben Johnson. So I think Ben Johnson looks at Tyler Warren, sees him slide by the Jets and says, this is a guy that I can use all over the formation. This is a guy that makes a ton of sense for me. Our next one, the 12th pick, I got the Dallas Cowboys selecting Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, first receiver off the board. What's the tiebreaker between him and McMillan here? Speed. Look at what they've already got. They've got a bigger receiver in CeeDee Lamb, a guy who can play at all three levels. And so what would complement a bigger receiver like a CeeDee Lamb? I think it'd be somebody like Matthew Golden, who can take the top off a defense, who's a skilled route runner, who I think is going to be a really good player. He's one of these guys that from a character standpoint is right down the middle, so you know what you're getting. He would make sense as somebody who I think could help Dak Prescott right away. He's been at two different colleges. He went to Texas, picked up Steve Sarkisian's offense, which does have pro concepts in it, very fast. So you like that about him. Matthew Golden would be the pick for me at 12. Just a little bit of an edge over Tedero, McMillan. Gray Zabel is another name to consider for the Cowboys there. It's one that I haven't seen a lot of other people talk about, but somebody I think with Zach Martin gone that would make a lot of sense for the Cowboys. And then at 21, we've got Kenneth Grant from the University of Michigan, the big defensive tackle. And Kent, I think the reason you put this in there is because it's not Shedeur Sanders. It's not a quarterback. My logic here, they've done a ton of work on the defensive tackles. They need to start reworking the interior of the defensive line with Cam Hayward getting older. And I could see for that reason a Kenneth Grant or a Derek Harmon going here. It wouldn't stun me if it's an Emeka Egbuka or an Omarion Hampton, somebody that can help the quarterback. Maybe an Egbuka helps you offload George Pickens over the weekend. But the way I look at it here, the reason I'm not going quarterback is the makeup of this team. Is you look at it and there's so many win now parts to that team. You've got TJ Watt turning 31. You've got Minkah Fitzpatrick turning 29. You've got Cam Hayward at the end of his career. You've got an offensive line group that has a chance to be really good. And all those guys are still on their rookie contracts. You're in this window now to go and win. So if you're confident that you're going to wind up with Aaron Rodgers or maybe a Kirk Cousins, I could see where you'd say, we need to use this pick on somebody who's going to help us now. If they do take a quarterback here, I think it may be a little bit of a sign that they are perhaps a little iffy on whether or not they wind up with a Rodgers or a Cousins or someone else. The other thing to mention here, they have explored the idea of moving down. Remember, they don't have a second round pick. So if you're talking about finding somebody to help you right now, in the first two rounds, this could be their only opportunity to do it if they can't move down, and it will be difficult to move down. So the other thing, Kent wanted me to hit here was the summary of the skill spots I had, the guys I have going at the skill spots. And as it stands right now, I have one quarterback going. I have two running backs going, and I have three receivers. I've got Cam Ward to the Titans, only quarterback in the first round. I've got Ashton Jeanty going to the Jaguars and Travion Henderson going to the Broncos. Those are the only two running backs in the round. And then I got three receivers. I've got Golden going to the Cowboys. I've got McMillan going to the Packers. And I've got Egbuka going to the Rams. So I think those are all for different reasons. Quarterback, it's because I think the quality of the class is what it is. And once you get past 9 with the Saints, there aren't a ton of quarterback needy teams that are going to reach. The Steelers are really the only one. And there's not a ton of history. There's some, Lamar Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater. There's some history of teams coming up into the bottom of the first round, but there's not a ton of it. So I think, would a Cleveland, a New York, a New Orleans, would they be comfortable sitting there in the second round? They might be. With the running backs, I think some of this is the confidence because of the depth of the class that you can get someone later on. And that's why I have Hampton falling out, because I don't know how many teams view him as that special compared to Henderson, to Judkins, to Caleb Johnson. So I think it's not the quality of player. It's how you can acquire running backs in this year's draft, where you can get guys like an RG Harvey later on. You go into round 2, round 3, you can get those players a little bit later on. And then receiver, I just think this is not the best year at the receiver position. It's that simple. So I think that what you're looking at there is a little bit more of conventional reasoning. Appreciate you guys coming out. I think we're going to try to get another Breer report for you on Friday. We'll definitely be wrapping everything up over the weekend. I appreciate all of you guys coming out and sticking with us through the course of the draft process. We got great response on the draft videos we've done this week, and I really appreciate you guys coming out. You can get me your feedback on all of it at Albert Breer on Twitter, at Albert R. Breer on Facebook, at Albert_Breer on Instagram. I can't wait for tonight. I know you can either. Enjoy the draft, everyone.